It's Cheer.
And this is Loathing.
We're here to talk to you about movies.
She loves everything. I hate everything.
This should be fun.
This is a morbidly beautiful podcast.
Testing, check.
Hello, and welcome to Cheer and Loathing, the show where two diametrically opposed forces collide to discuss and debate horror films. I'm Cheer, aka Stephanie, and I'm the half of the show who tends to love everything. My partner in crime, Casey, aka Loathing, is a grumpy old man who tends to hate everything. Only for this episode, Casey isn't here. Does that mean there won't be any loathing on the show? We shall see. In Casey's stead, we have a very special guest host making his return appearance on the show, Jamie Marino. He and I will be strapping in for a wild ride as we discuss the 2023 horror hit Cocaine Bear and the upcoming parody horror film Cocaine Shark. So welcome, Jamie, and thank you for joining me in this episode since my cantankerous co-host is on a little bit of a vacation.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled. I love this show.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you. And I appreciate you filling in on short notice and being willing to talk about these two really wild movies with me.
Yeah. I'm not loathing. I would say I'm aggressively cynical. Cheer and aggressively cynical.
Is aggressively cynical? How different is aggressively cynical from loathing?
Well, I would think loathing is like really like determined, volume up to 11 kind of hate.
Yeah, that sounds like Casey.
Yeah, and I'm more like, well, I don't know.
So you're just kind of meh. Is that what you would say?
Yeah.
You just sort of...
Yeah, I'm more of a meh.
All right, well, someone's got to be, and I appreciate you owning that.
Cheer and meh.
It's yes, it does have a beautiful ring to it.
Oh,
it's going to be a fun one. Okay, so we're going to start with Cocaine Bear.
No, don't eat that.
Let's see what kind of effect that has on
The bear, it fucking did cocaine. A bear did cocaine.
I think we had a little bit of a pre-show and you sort of said that you think that you're going to have a lot to say about this one, maybe not as much as the next one. I'm sort of the reverse, so this will be really interesting.
Well, good.
But before we get into it, I'm going to do a little bit of stage setting and I'm just going to tell everyone what we're talking about. So Cocaine Bear, which I read was released as Crazy Bear in some countries apparently, which is a pretty fun name as well. It is a 2023 American horror comedy film directed by Elizabeth Banks and written by Jamie Marino. It's loosely inspired by the true story of the Cocaine Bear, an American black bear that ingested nearly 75 pounds of cocaine. It's dedicated to Ray Liotta, who died in May of 2022. Cocaine Bear was released in the United States on February 24, 2023 by Universal Pictures. The film received positive reviews from critics and grossed over $89 million against a production budget between $30 and $35 million. So it made a pretty good amount of bank.
I'm surprised.
Really? Okay, well, we'll get there. So now Casey, my regular co-host, now he's the one who always loves to talk about a film's Rotten Tomatoes score. And one of his favorite things to do is to compare the critic score to the audience score. So in his honor, I'm going to tell you that Cocaine Bear currently holds a respectable 67% critic score and a slightly higher 71% audience score. Did you, and I know, so being the guest, I basically told you like, okay, this is what we're talking about, and you didn't get a lot of say in it. But how did you feel when I told you that we were going to be watching Cocaine Bear? Like, what was your reaction when you first saw the marketing? How did you feel about how you might feel about the film before you watched it?
All right, let me preface this by saying I hold no ill will against the makers of Cocaine Bear, and this is nothing personal.
Yeah, I'm sure they listen. I'm sure they're going to have their feelings hurt if you say anything bad.
You never know. I mean,
Yeah, well, I'm sure Elizabeth is a very big fan of Cheer and Loathing, and so please definitely be nice to her.
Anyway, I was kind of disappointed because we've discussed films before, and they've usually been very energetic conversations, and apparently I think this is going to be too. But I was like, oh God, I'm the guest host. Oh, we're gonna talk about fucking, I don't know, whatever. And you were like, Cocaine Bear and Cocaine Shark, and I'm like, oh, okay. But
So you were disappointed
watched-
when I told you what we were talking about.
a bit, yeah, okay.
All right. So tell me why you were disappointed.
I was never really interested in the movie to begin with. It's basically like a throwaway gimmick news story that somebody picked up somewhere, and hey, did you hear?
Did you watch the trailer?
What?
Did you watch the trailer? Or are you one of those that doesn't watch trailers? Okay.
When the movie I don't care about very much is out, I watch trailers. Yeah.
So you watch trailers for movies you're not interested in. That's an interesting perspective.
I'm interested in all horror movies, but the ones that I have a real intention on seeking out, I'll look at them. I'll kind of avoid trailers.
Okay. But you watched this one.
Yes.
Okay. And you were like, not for me before you watched the film.
Yeah, kind of. But,
Okay.
The reason I got to that thought was that it just looked so meh. As I said earlier, I was impressed that they showed children eating cocaine. That's
Yeah.
I'm shocked that a major studio let that in a climate where we rate movies R because they're smoking in them. I found that interesting.
I do think if your criticism, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that it didn't go far enough.
Exactly.
I think that's a fair criticism because while I did enjoy this film, and I would recommend it to people, I had a good time with it.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be a little bit more batshit crazy, but it's a really, I was thinking about it because again, and we're going to get to this when we talk about Cocaine Shark. It's a really fine line to walk because on one hand, I wanted to go all in and I wanted to just be absolutely nutter butters, right? On the other hand, and I do have a soft spot for B movies, but sometimes like a movie like this, I don't think it doesn't want to be like a sci-fi original. Like it's not that kind of film where it's like, okay, this is just going to be so shitty that you're going to have fun just because it's like so shitty. It's trying to actually at the same time be a competently made, pretty broad appeal type of movie. And that's a hard line to walk because you want to have a lot of mass appeal. And so you want to be crazy enough to where people are like, oh shit, Cocaine Bear. But you don't want to be so crazy where people are like, okay, that was fucking Sharknado. And that's not my jam. You know what I mean?
We're fans of a rather challenging genre here. Because the big thing now is grindhouse B movies. Everybody wants to be B, and they're using computer generated sparks and grain to put in movies to make them look old. I think that's really insincere. Like, yes, if this were made in the 70s, it would be a B movie. But I don't think it is a B movie simply because it looks great. Millions of dollars were spent on it. Stars are in it. So how is it a B movie? Same thing with Terrifier 2. Oh, it's a throwback to the 70s drive-ins. No, it isn't. It's fucking slick as fuck. It's gory as fuck, high tech. I mean, you wouldn't see anything like that in the 70s. No one would think of making anything like that in the 70s. So, like, when people are like, "Oh, it's just like a B movie,"
well,
it's easy to digest like a B movie.
I don't think. First of all, I don't think this movie markets itself like a B movie. I don't think it's trying to be a B movie. And I think a lot of times when people say B movie, that doesn't necessarily mean like. Yes, and I get that there is the reference to like that conjures up ideas of super low budget and super shitty quality. But I think a lot of times that's used in reference to just the material and the campiness of the material and the fact that it's not meant to be super serious and it is meant to be sort of over the top and gleefully kind of ridiculous. which is why I think people refer to a film like Terrifier 2. Yeah, I mean, first of all, Terrifier 2 was very, very low budget. It just looks good as hell because there's a lot of like competency behind the camera on that one. But it definitely goes for that. It's definitely meant to be a midnight movie. And I mean that in the most loving and positive way possible. Like it's meant to be a gonzo type of film. And I think that's sort of what people, I think it may be just like a semantics language thing, but I think that's kind of what we mean when we say, a lot of times when we say B movie type, because oh, go ahead.
Like,
sorry.
Like when like with pornography, when that judge said, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. Like, you don't know what a B movie is or whatever, but you know a B movie when you see one, like that kind of thing. Like it's just terms like B movie and grindhouse and drive-ins, they conjure up a certain atmosphere. And if you're talking about a movie that applies to that or nourishes that atmosphere, then I got you. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think when, like, again, this film, I think it's challenging because on one hand, from a premise standpoint and from just the ridiculous nature of the fact that a bear is going to like, you know, become addicted to cocaine and just like eat it like candy and then just become off the rails insane. I think that concept is so kind of nutty that it does have a sort of Sharknado vibe where it's like all those sci-fi original type films. The thing that makes them appealing to people who like that kind of film is the fact that it's like the premise is so fucking crazy. And you're kind of going in like, you're not going to get a good film. You're not going to get a quality made film. You are just going to get this like insane premise. And that's going to be where you're going to get your enjoyment if you're going to enjoy that sort of thing. This film has that sort of, the premise is bananas, but on the other hand, it's actually like I'm doing air quotes now that you can't see, but an air quotes real movie where it's like, this is meant to be shown in a theater. It's meant to have broad appeal. It's meant to be a very watchable film that is very well made. And there's a lot of like seriousness that is taken in the making of this film. Like there's an effort to make it good. Do you know what I mean? And so it's a weird balance. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's why I hesitate to bash it too much because I mean, people love this. I'm sure this movie means a lot to a lot of people. So it's not my place to say, this is trash. Get out of here. You know?
Well, I mean, it is your place to have an opinion. Like, this is what this podcast is all about. You're welcome to like say that it didn't do anything for you or you hated it. Like, that's not not an insult really. It's just, it's not for you.
I'm just not going to attack it.
Yeah.
Much.
But I guess my point is that I think that's one of the challenges it has, because I think a lot of people go into a film like Cocaine Bear wanting just absolute insanity because like the premise is so insane and you just want to see a bear like go berserker. And that's really kind of all you care about. And this film is really like, well, we're actually going to tell a story here and we're going to have characters and we're going to try to invest you somewhat. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it can be a little polarizing because, you know, it doesn't give enough of the craziness because it is trying to sort of be a little bit balanced. So on one hand, you kind of are like, well, that was a good film and it was well done, but I wish I could have seen more like just absolute insanity.
I wonder if a major studio wasn't behind it, if it would be crazier. You think maybe Universal kind of, I don't know, said, take it easy a little bit, you know?
No, I think it's because it is I don't really have the words for this and I'm using the wrong words, but it's for lack of a better word, serious film in which like they wanted to get a theatrical release. They wanted to get butts in the seats. They wanted it to be taken seriously. Because here, I don't really know. You know, let's go back to Terrifier 2 because use that exception. That's sort of a really weird anomaly because they definitely did play to their audience and they were like, look, I mean, we're never going to be mainstream. We're not going to be a big budget theatrical type of thing. So we're just going to we know what kind of horror fan wants to see this and we're going to cater to that horror fan and we're going to give them, you know, just absolute intense, like crazy ass gore and all the things that those kind of horror fans want. We're going to make a midnight movie and that's all we're going to try to be. Right. And it just blew up and it became this phenomenon that it was never expected to be. And now I'm very curious to see what happens because now they're going to have a big budget and a big studio and a big release. And are they going to lose that? What makes it so great? Or maybe not. I don't know. And I hope not. But
I guess I'm nervous about it. I'm very concerned.
Yeah. But I guess my point is that, you know, sometimes you have to make a choice. And I think this film, because it sort of went in knowing like, okay, we are going to be a film that is going to be mainstream, then that means you can't go if you go too far into the like campy ridiculousness of it, you lose a lot of your audience because then you start to go into the realm of like, okay, this is like a sci-fi original. And there is an audience for that, but there's a very specific audience for those kind of films. And it's not a broad audience. Like there isn't a lot of people like Cocaine Shark, the next film we're going to talk about. It's not a lot of people that are going to intentionally go in and watch Cocaine Shark. The people that do watch it kind of know what they're going to get before they even watch that film. And they know what to expect. And, you know, they're setting their expectations appropriately. Whereas Cocaine Bear, you got a lot of people who maybe aren't hardcore horror fans and they're not fans of these kind of sci-fi ridiculous films. They just were like, okay, this looks like a fun premise. There's a big name behind it. The trailer looks good. It looks fun. I'm going to go in and have a good time. So you have to take a bit of a measured approach. But as with anything, the more you try to appeal to more people, the less sort of special or unique you can be in a way, because you have to have that broad appeal. Whereas if this was a film that was very, very indie and it was never meant to have a theatrical release and it was never meant to be seen by a wide audience, it probably would have been a lot more batshit crazy, but then it wouldn't have had the same traction that this one had. So it's like it's always this like game that you're playing of like, okay, how much are we going to cater to our audience versus how much are we going to try to broaden that audience?
If I made this, I would, now this is Fantasyland, so I know what I'm about to say is going to sound, impossible. I would get the backing from A24 and I would make maybe an hour and 45-minute long movie of this exact event of the bear eating the cocaine, but I would spend the entire time in the head of the bear, completely freaking out. And just have all these weird, okay, I'll sidetrack here for a minute. The one thing I liked the most about the movie was the bear and the effects of the bear.
Yeah.
I really liked that. The little twitches it was doing, and oh boy, the little funny thing that it does, the little bear cubs, that kind of thing. I liked that. But anyway, I would be like totally experimental. I would be like, from the perspective of the bear, is he going to kill people? Is he going to go nuts? Well, maybe, yeah. But I mean, they would be murder meat. They wouldn't be characters, because the point of my cocaine bear would be the bear that ate this massive amount of a massive drug and what it did to it,
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I respect what you're saying. I do have.
Thank you.
Okay, but there's a but coming. I do have a little bit of a problem being like, well, this isn't the film I would have made, and my film would have been totally different, because it's like, we're kind of not judging the film we wish would have been made. We're judging like, okay, what was the filmmaker trying to deliver, and did this film meet those expectations? Did it deliver on what the filmmaker was trying to do?
So in other words, you're interpreting what I said as I was going to make the movie deeper, which I guess I would have.
Or a little bit more art house, right? Like a little bit more experimental, a little bit more niche.
Yes.
And listen, like I would watch the hell out of that shit. I mean, like if there's one thing Stephanie loves, it's A24 art house films. And Casey will tell you that because he hates that about me. Thinks that I'm a pretentious asshole, but I am a little bit of a pretentious asshole when it comes to films, I guess.
I totally am too. I admit it. Like when we reviewed Rat's Nest, we were joking that even if this wasn't a spoof and it was that movie, we would watch it and probably enjoy it.
Yeah, because I would be that critic who is like trying to be like, oh my God, this is so deep and so layered. And let me talk about the metaphors and the allegories. And, everybody else in the mainstream would be like, okay, this was boring as fuck. And I don't like what the hell? But I love that. That's one of my favorite things to do is to like peel back layers and, assess meaning and all that shit. That's not for everyone though. And I guess that's the point when I say that, yes. And a niche audience would eat that shit up, but not a mainstream one. And this is a mainstream film. And
what am I doing here? Okay, I'm sorry. There.
What?
I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay.
I'm bumping the mouse. I'm sorry. This is exactly what you told me not to do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
okay.
and you said, I get it, Stephanie. Yeah, duh. You don't have to give me all the rules. And I'm like, okay, Jamie, as long as you get it. And then I somehow knew you didn't get it.
Back to the crapane bear here.
Okay. I will not allow that. Let me say this. I will not allow you to say crapane bear. I mean, you did say it, so I guess it happened. Then I'm not going to edit it out, but I don't think,
sorry,
but I will say, I don't think this is crap. I think this movie is fun. I think it's entertaining. It's certainly like, I wasn't bored and I didn't leave the film going like, well, that was a waste of my fucking time. Like, and I wasn't angry that I, spent time watching this film.
No,
is it as fun and bananas and all that stuff as I want it to be? No. I mean, it's a little tamer than I wanted for sure. And like I said, I think that's fair criticism, but it's certainly not crap. Like it's very watchable. And if they made a sequel to this, I would watch the sequel in a heartbeat. And hopefully in the sequel, they would go big because this one did so well. Maybe they'll push it further and they'll be a little bit more crazy and a little bit more over the top and it'll be more fun. But I think, for what it was and for having the success it had, which I think is fantastic. I love to see movies like this that are a little bit
I'm
unexpected. Yeah.
$89 million. That is amazing. That's awesome.
It's and like saying every time a movie like this does well, we get more movies like this, and I am 100% on board with that. So
I know.
I think my assessment of this film is like, no, I'm not going to be like, holy shit, guys, Cocaine Bear will blow your fucking mind. It's like nothing you've ever seen. You've got to rush right out. Like, I'm not there, but I'm definitely going to say, like, look, you're probably going to have a good time with this. Like, bring some friends over, have some drinks, make some popcorn, whatever you need to do. And like, you're going to have fun. And that's kind of all this film is really trying to do, is just be entertaining. And I think it succeeds in that area. I think it's a pretty competent horror film.
First of all, I want to apologize for saying crapane bear. That was just something I said because it's actually like a critic like moral of mine to not insult movies and say they're crap, they're trash, they're garbage, because like I said, they mean something to everybody, to whoever's in. Anyway, I apologize for that. But yeah, I was hoping it would be a little more gory, a lot more gory. Okay, let's be honest. And it was just, and a lot of the reviews, the little 1-sentence reviews, a lot of them said, "Oh, this is crazy. Oh, the gore level is turned up to 1 million. Wait till you see it." It wasn't. I was like,
well, I think you have to, again, this brings back to the point. It's like, this is a broad appeal type of film. So you've got a lot of people watching this film that aren't horror movie people. And for somebody who doesn't watch the films that we watch, somebody who isn't desensitized and severely disturbed like we are, I think there's certainly enough gore and crazy shit happening to be like, oh God, this is kind of a lot. This is kind of intense. Now, obviously, for people like us who are the Terrifier 2 watchers of the world, there's no way a film like this is going to achieve anything near that level for us. We're always going to be like, well, I've certainly seen a lot worse and or better, depending on how you're framing it. But it's, you just have to, for a film like this, it's a theatrical release that's sort of a like mainstream movie. I think there was a decent amount of gore. There just wasn't anything compared to the kind of films that we typically watch.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we're spoiled. That's kind of what it is.
Well, we just, we are, again, I don't want to be a dead horse, but we are that niche audience, right? We are the audience that's like, I want you to push boundaries, and I want you to shock me, and I want you to surprise me, and I want you to give me something I haven't seen before, which is going to be really fucking hard because I've seen a lot of fucked up shit. Okay, so good luck with that, And like,
but it didn't do that for me.
Yeah, and that's where we have like,
the
Damien Leones of the world who are like, okay, fucked up horror fan. I'm going to give you what you want. And that's great. And I love these films, but we can't expect a film like this to be that because it's never intended to be that. It's not meant to be a boundary pushing, like, let's see how much I can shock you and make your stomach turn. It's meant to be like, hey, let's have a little bit of fun. You know, like this is a fun concept. We're going to have a little bit of gore, a little bit of humor, a little bit of like, you know, great like effects. And yeah, it's just going to be a good old time. And that's all we're trying to do here. And I think if you measure it by that framework, I think it succeeds really well at being what it's trying to be. And I don't think you're wrong for being like, I was a little bit disappointed. I wanted more, because that's just the nature of us being hardcore horror fans. But I do think I would a little bit caution us to not to watch it from that frame of mind, because this isn't that kind of film and it's not supposed to be.
Okay. I would say, yeah. Like I said, I'm just being, it's the entertainer in me, I guess, being a little funny and aggressive. But it didn't excite me. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. And whenever I see a horror movie, I want all horror movies to like be crazy. And I was just like, well, you know, I was like, oh, think of the damage a bear can do to a human body, and this is a crazy cocaine bear movie. And it didn't impress me. The kids eating the coke impressed me. The bear effects impressed me.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Banks' direction impressed me.
Yeah, she's really good.
Movie? Yeah.
No, it's not her first movie, but I was very happy that, because I really like her. I like her as a filmmaker. I mean, she's obviously a great actress too, but I'm excited for her success with this, because she hasn't had a ton of that so far, and I think that she deserves it. And obviously, I think we need more like female voices in film that are successful. So I was really, I think more than anything, thrilled that this was so well received. But with that said, I do want to say, you know, I was editing a review recently, and the review was basically like, look, like this film kind of does everything right, just technically anyway. Like, it's really well made and the performances are strong and the direction is good. And so it's hard to critique it. But at the end of the day, like, I didn't feel anything. And
yes,
I forgot
exactly
it.
Right.
Yeah. I forgot it the second the credits rolled. And for me, like, the reviewer was basically saying, for me, that's like the worst sin that a film can commit. And so to your point, a film can be really good and still do absolutely nothing for you. And sometimes the disappointment of it not living up to what it could have been makes it feel like a bad film, even though it's not a bad film necessarily. But it is a film that lets you down and doesn't, like, you wanted more. And that's okay too. Like, that's a fair criticism for sure, to be like, it just did nothing for me. And that is where I think the film fails.
So when a sequel comes out, I want more bear and more children eating cocaine.
Yeah. But I'm really hopeful. I agree with you. And I don't even know if there's going to be a sequel, but I would put money on the fact that there would be.
89 million, you know.
Yeah, I was say it's a pretty sure bet that there's going to be. And I would very much expect to see the sequel go off the rails in a really good way. Because, see, now they've proven that there's an audience, right? Now they've proven that people do want this kind of thing. So they had to be a little cautious in the beginning because they didn't know. Now they know. So now they can go all in and be like, okay, we've set the groundwork here. Now we can be just batshit crazy. And I'm super excited for that. And I hope that happens, because that would be really fun. Do you, before we move on to our next film, which I'm very excited about,
good.
Do you want to, let's talk about, is there anything that really, I mean, I know you kind of mentioned a couple things that stood out just from like, you really like the bear, you like some of the effects and things, but is there any kind of scene that particularly stood out that you want to talk about, or anything that you're like, I really enjoyed this aspect?
Just
and if
the little,
if not, that's okay.
The cute scenes of the bear, like the one scene where he's like scratching his back on the ground, or like doing this little jiggy thing. I mean, that was cute. His little bear friends, well, children, I guess. And the way they killed Ray Liotta at the end. Friends. The way they killed Ray Liotta at the end was cool. The photography, gorgeous forest photography,
very well shot.
Yes.
I did really appreciate, I'm glad you said that, because I think that was really fun how obviously the bear is like become this like cannibalistic killer
Yeah.
because of the coke, but also the bear is incredibly adorable and
Yes.
like charming and also like really cute. It has these cute little cubs and it's really sweet with the cubs. And
Yeah.
I mean, the bear, even though it's the antagonist, is also sort of their protagonist. And, you mentioned like it would be fun to see it from the bear's perspective in your film, but I almost feel like, I mean, obviously we didn't get that entirely, but I do think we are sort of rooting for the bear a little bit, especially at the end. Go ahead.
That's one of the. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead. I'm done. You can go.
That's another thing that bothered me about it. I mean, they were kind of pushing the comedy thing too much. I mean, like, it was lazy. It was lazy comedy because all the characters were complete idiots or played for comic relief. All of them, except I was going to say except maybe the kids, but no, obviously, yeah, they were goofy too. So any pinch of threat or intensity from an insane bear chasing you through the woods, having an overdose, it was kind of lost. Like maybe if some of the characters were a bit more serious, it might have rung my bells a little louder.
See, I would have to disagree with you on that because I think the comedy really worked in this. And I do think that's sort of, again, one of those like, well, what kind of film is it? You get this a lot with horror comedies. It's like, all right, are you going to lean more heavily into the horror or the comedy? And a lot of horror comedies lean way more into the comedy and almost no horror. And I think this is one of those situations where obviously there's some horror, the bear does like eat people and there is some like gore and gruesomeness.
Suspense, yeah.
But it is, I'd say 90% comedy, 10% horror. I mean, it's intentionally weighted that way. And for me, I don't know. I think it worked. I had a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. I think, like Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who's from Modern Family, I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love Margot Martindale. She just can do no wrong. I thought this scene, one of my favorite scenes was the paramedic scene. I thought that whole sequence was handled really well. And
that was a standout. Yes, it was.
And it was like really, it was kind of gory and awful and over the top, awful in a good way and over the top, but also like super funny and just very stylistically shot. So I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. It was,
obviously it was great to see Ray Liotta, and I think this is his last film, if I'm not mistaken. Before he passed away, which is obviously super sad, and he's great. Yeah, I mean, he is a caricature. He's an over-the-top, like, gangster bad man, and I think that's intentional. But I think it's always super fun to see him chewing some scenery. I thought that the performances were great. I thought they got a really good cast for here, and I actually thought the comedy landed pretty well for me in almost all cases. But I mean, that's obviously a subjective thing and that's a personal opinion. It's not going to be for everyone.
For me, a good horror comedy isn't the kind that Cocaine Bear is. A good horror comedy for me is a completely serious situation, and the reactions the people have to the situation. I want the comedy to come from there, not the people themselves. I want everything in a horror comedy to be completely straight shot, but I want the comedy to come in with the reaction. An American Werewolf in London, that's horror comedy because that's totally serious. Everybody in that movie, there's no caricatures. Everybody is serious, but it's an outlandish situation, and the reaction, dialogue, specifically the dialogue, obviously between David and I forget the other guy's name. The dead, but I mean, that was the big glowing positive part of the movie, the conversations between the dead guy and John McNaughton. So that was a situation where a horrific incident, a horrific situation is lightened because of the dialogue and the responses of the characters. Like when he's turning into the wolf, he has to get in I didn't mean to call you a meatloaf, Jack. That's his name. So I'm sorry. Anyway, that's a whole comedy for me.
I mean, I would say I can probably count on less than one hand the amount of horror comedies that I think 100% nail that balance between horror and comedy.
They should keep trying, I think.
It's not, most of them, like I said, you almost are like, okay, I'm watching a comedy. Like, it is horror comedy only because there are horrific elements. But for all intents and purposes, this is a comedy film. And that's okay. Like, a lot of people love comedy films, you know? It's just, you kind of have to know what you have to modulate your expectations, I think. I'm going to transition. I know, deep sigh. I'm going to transition to Cocaine Shark.
I was working for a kingpin named Garisco. Tons of mafia and drug money fueling his big campaign, HT25. The serum started failing, resulting in freaks of nature, horrible creatures created by its side effects.
There's been a change of plans.
Change of plans? Because of the lab explosion? Missing test animals?
We had an accident at the lab, an explosion. The remaining specimens were either destroyed in the explosion or escaped.
Is it following us?
I think I saw something in the water. I think it was a shark.
Please.
Because as I mentioned, I have some things to say about this one.
Good.
But I'm going to start with a little bit of background so you guys know what we're talking about. Because it's a really rich and layered film that deserves as much important setup and backstory as possible.
It may have a lot of good backstories to it.
Sure. So we'll see. So Cocaine Shark comes from, speaking of B-movie, it is a self-defined B-movie production company, Wide Eye Releasing.
Yes.
And it's the latest from Mark Polonia, who, if you know that name, like, you know that name. Like, he is sort of the madman behind virtually every ridiculous shark movie that you've ever seen. Like, if you've seen some, like, horrible, like, insane sci-fi movie that is some sort of mutant creature versus another mutant creature, it's probably Mark Polonia.
And Brett Piper, who I believe wrote it and produced it, was responsible for a lot of those crazy Misty Monday softcore porn movies that Seduction Cinema and Shockorama Cinema used to put out.
Interesting. Yeah.
But my dad knows that. He told me about it.
If there's one thing Cocaine Shark is not, it is sexy. So I don't know what he was bringing to the table there. But so we watched a screener, you and I.
Yes.
So it's pre-release. It does officially release on July 11th. So if after we get done talking about it, you still want to see it, that is when you will be able to. Now, whether or not you're going to want to see it after we get done with it is a whole other topic, but we'll get there. So I'm going to give you the plot synopsis. I'm going to try to give you the plot synopsis. This is what it is on paper. A mafia drug lord has unleashed a new, highly addictive stimulant on the streets called HT25, derived from sharks held captive in a secret lab. And this drug causes monstrous side effects. After an explosion and a leak at the lab, an army of mutated, bloodthirsty sharks and other creatures are set loose on the world as a small band of people try to stop the carnage. Now, the reason I said that's the synopsis on paper is because I'm not quite sure that's the synopsis of what we actually got on the screen, but that is what this film is supposed, air quotes, be about. So a little bit about the film and why it's made. Inspired by the then upcoming Cocaine Bear, numerous social media users pitched the idea for a movie called Cocaine Shark after New Zealand authorities announced that 3.2 tons of cocaine had been intercepted in the Pacific Ocean. When Cocaine Bear director Elizabeth Banks was subsequently asked if she would consider tackling another project featuring a coked out animal, she replied in the affirmative. "I've seen that," she said. "If there's a great story there, then sure." And then she went on to, and this was in an interview with People, she went on to say, "Jaws with cocaine? I don't see how that loses." I never thought that I would say this about a movie. But I would tell you that I think this movie has too much plot. Because all we really needed to have this be fun, I mean, not good, and it was never going to be good. Like, it's Cocaine Shark from Wild Eye. It was never going to be from bologna. Like, it was never going to be good. It was
not fun either.
It should have been fun, right? Because all we really needed was a coked up shark going berserker. What we got instead was some kind of convoluted crime syndicate story that I could not follow to save my life. And I wanted to tell you that I had to watch this film twice to even sort of figure out, and it was painful. I was like, okay, I watched it the first time and I didn't know what the fuck I just seen. Like, couldn't tell you one thing that actually happened. Then I watched it again to try to be able to like form so coherent thoughts, which barely helped. I would say that when I watched this film, I was 100% positive that it was written by AI, which, although I say that saying that I'm pretty sure, and I almost want to test this out, that AI would have written a better story. Like, it would have been a more like Jaws on cocaine type of story than what we actually get. I don't understand what we got or why we got it.
We got claymation. That's what we got.
Well, so we're going to get to that because I'm sorry. This is going to be a lot because I have a lot to say, and I'm going to go a little bit linear. Well, linear is a rough word for this film, but I want to hit some points.
Okay.
We are definitely going to talk about the visual effects, but I want to say,
and the shark.
Well, that's what I mean by visual effects. When I went into this film, I've seen a lot of these kind of films. First of all, this is kind of my jam. I like these shitty sci-fi, stupid ass shark movies. I like them for pure, just like mindless entertainment silliness. I'm a big, first of all, I'm a big shark girl. Love me some sharks.
Yeah.
Now what I really love is an actual good scary shark movie. Like I love a good, Jaws-esque film. Those are few and far between.
Yeah,
but I also,
one, right? Jaws.
There are a few. There's Open Water. There's The Shallows. There's
okay.
There's a few that like nothing is Jaws, obviously, but there's a few that play in that sort of sandbox. But I also, will watch 1,000 stupid ass shitty like Sharkopolis, Jurassic Shark, kind of crazy ass nutty stuff, and usually I will laugh and have a good time.
See, they anger me.
Okay.
I consider them in the same way. Everybody loves Metalocalypse. I fucking hate Metalocalypse. I think it's an insult to metal fans. In the same way that I think all these like fucked up mega shark creature python things are sort of like a fuck you to horror people. You can.
So
sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't even know if have you seen Birdemic?
No, and I don't want to.
Okay. See, we're very different people, you and I, which is not a big surprise. That's not an insult. We're just different, right? Like, that's the point of the show, is that we different perspectives. Again, I'm somebody who really loves Birdemic. But these films are all in that, for people who do know Birdemic, who are familiar, these films are all in that universe of like, part of the fun is that it looks like absolute shit. And it's just hilarious. And there's absolutely no effort being made, but that's kind of the point. The point is that like, it's a little tongue in cheek of like, I mean, these films are made with like for $5, I swear to God. And, and that's part of like, it's almost like bragging rights of like, look how fucking awful this is. And isn't that fun? And a lot of times, like, yeah, it is fun because the concept is fun enough and they have fun with it. And it's silly and they embrace the silliness and it's pure camp. And that can be delicious if done right. But this is something else entirely. And I want to kind of go through it because I have so many notes and I'm going to try to not like drone on, but I just want to sort of like walk through some of the experience that I had while watching this and have you kind of comment on it.
I'll cut in as you talk because I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go on.
No, it's fine. Right. No, please jump in. So it starts off, you have this drug dealer in the beginning. And immediately I wrote down, the acting is absolutely bananas. Like, it is so bad right off the top that you're like, okay. And so immediately the film announces like, guess what you're in for? And you're like, oh shit, buckle up, right? Even the opening credits are bonkers. Even from that point, I was like, okay, this is insane. But I still was like, okay, this is going to be so bad. It's good, right? This is going to be fun because it's so insane. Then we meet our protagonist who's lying restrained in a hospital bed. And we hear his inner dialogue, right? He's like unconscious, but he's like aware and he's thinking. And when he's talking, there's this like insane echoing effect, which I guess is supposed to represent his inner voice. Mm-hmm. It's so distracting and weird and bizarre and makes no sense. And I'm just like, and it goes on for a long time. And then if he's doing a very long monologue, which there are parts where he's just talking and talking inside his head, they'll, like, let's say it's a 10-minute monologue. They'll do the echoey thing for about 5 minutes and then they'll just stop it because then they're like, okay, we're fucking done. But he's still doing his inner monologue, which, again, doesn't make any sense. Let me interrupt you. No, okay. That's good. That's cool. Very few movies use inner dialogue. The Robert Pattinson Batman used it. And it gave the movie so much more depth and emotional weight. And I mean, words can free any thought. Like words are like your key to everything. So to use like a character has this voice, there's dialogue, it's in the movie, whatever, okay. But to have a universe of things you can write, anything at all, and put in his inner mind, in his inner monologues, I mean, you give the character more depth, more sympathy, if you want him to have more sympathy. You know, and but yeah, I will actually approve of that particular move. And you approve of the echoing effect that they did while he did his inner monologue? Oh, no, none of this, nothing positive I say is probably going to be about the movie, more as just the thing they did. Okay, so that someone else could have done better. Then we flash back to 4 weeks earlier, and we're going to get the origin story, right? Mm-hmm. And the scientist is in an explosion at the lab. And I rarely do this, but please, if you will indulge me, I'm going to recite some of this extraordinary dialogue because I think it's very important that people understand the nature of this dialogue. The remaining specimens were either destroyed in the explosion or escaped. Among them, a hybrid man-shark, half human, half shark, a winged bat creature with spider legs, and a shark and crab DNA combined creature called crab shark. Somewhere out there in the harbor, the surf, the ocean, they roamed. Something had to be done about it. So that sound, I'm like, that kind of sounds interesting. Yeah, exactly. So the point is that besides a very, very brief blink and you miss it glimpse, the only creature we really see is the very, really intelligently named crab shark. And they list all this shit. They're like, oh my God, there's all these fucked up creatures. And the creatures they sound absolutely bananas, and they are. But you don't ever get them. They're not ever mentioned. Wasn't the man shark, wasn't he seen in a scene? Yeah, well, I said, that's why I said very brief. There's like a shark mask on or something. There is a little bit, so you get a very, very quick glimpse of the bat creature, which looks crazier than anything I've ever seen in my life, which is actually a compliment because it's like I would watch the shit out of this film with this winged bat creature with spider legs. Would have saved this movie. Again, more effects would have improved it. But really, this is only about the crab shark, really. But it's this hilarious, like, dramatic scene where they're like, "Oh my God, there's all these creatures out there," and you don't get any of that. So then we meet our air quotes hero, who is an undercover narcotics officer, and he gets a call from his supervisor, and they have this amazing exchange where he says, "How are you?" And then he says, "I'm fine." He's like, "Really? Everyone tells me you look like shit," which is just such a hilarious exchange, and what a great thing to say to somebody. Very uncomfortable dialogue, very awkward. And he's told that he has to go infiltrate a drug cartel. And the head of it is this middle-aged white guy who says he's from Colombia, who wears a do-rag and a blazer. And the cop is supposed to be undercover, and he's supposed to be he's basically a drug dealer. But he walks in to meet with the criminal mastermind in a collared shirt and tie, dress pants, and a very exposed gun in a holster, which I guess is supposed to be his drug lord outfit. Not conspicuous at all. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like, if you saw him on the street, no one in their right mind would think he was anything other than a police officer. Like, he looks like 100% like a undercover police officer. There's no attempt to blend in. Yeah.
No.
So his informant gets killed by the aforementioned half man, half shark, which I actually did laugh out loud at the scene. I think maybe unintentionally, but where the shark reaches up and scratches his face like a cat with claws.
Yes. I know.
Glorious. I was like, okay.
Someone dipped their fingers in blood and touched a guy's face. There's a graphic gore effect of a guy being chopped up by a shark claw thing.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It's just like somebody slapped him with the rubber glove, and that was the effect.
It literally was exactly like, I couldn't stop laughing because it was just like if a cat reached up and scratched your face. Like, it was, and why this shark is like clawing his face like a cat, I do not know, but I guess that's part of the mutation. Even though he doesn't have any cat in him, he's half shark, half man. But it's very bananas.
And if you can possibly fathom this, lovely audience, the shark effect here is worse and wankier looking than the shark effect they used in the old Saturday Night Live land shark sketches. It's worse than that.
Yeah, no,
and that's not an exaggeration.
It's not. It's. But I mean, again, like, I find that kind of endearing. Like, if you give me more of that kind of shit, I'm sort of like, I'm entertained. Like, I'm giggling. I'm having a good time. You know, I think where this film, if this film leaned more into that, I would have ended this. We would have been having a very different conversation, because I would have been like, look, obviously it's not for everyone. It's only for people who like these kind of films. Yeah. But it was super fucking fun, and I had a great time, and I laughed, and it was a party, and it was amazing, and more, please. This film is not that, because for some reason, it wants to tell you a story that you don't give a shit about, and the story makes no sense, and obviously the writing cannot carry a story, and the acting can't carry a story, so why the hell they're even trying to give us one? I don't know, because like I said, all we needed was stupid ass, like, awful shark effects and a bunch of like people getting killed and fake blood and just ridiculousness. We did not need any of this like complicated. The plot is very complicated for a fucking cocaine shark movie.
Was there cocaine in the movie? I was high when I watched it, so maybe I missed it. But I know there was the new drug that makes everybody crazy, but I don't think there was cocaine in it, was there?
There might have been a slight reference to it, but there is.
Is the kind of movie cocaine we're talking about. Cocaine shark. But there's no cocaine in it. Yeah.
No, it's the main thing is okay. So we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna keep going with the plot here, because this film is so bananas that I just feel like we need to unravel it. So one of the things is the drugs that they are like, because you have different like drug dealers, and they're all sort of like having a turf war, supposedly. And as they're all doing the drugs, the drugs are in these giant generic Ziploc bags. It's the most hilarious thing. Like, imagine these like those like gallon Ziploc bags, and you have like all these drugs, boxes full of these drugs in these Ziploc bags. And the doctor who's in this lab, after the explosion, he escapes with the compound that's the HT25. And the drug, and basically because he's like, he's discovered that it's incredibly dangerous and that it mutates people. So he tries to escape with it.
I was going to say, he seemed happy about this. He was like legitimately like, this is a wonderful thing to have. Like,
oh, I didn't get that. I got that he was like trying to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So he escapes with it, and the drug lord sends his thugs to attack him and steal the briefcase that has the compound in it. And meanwhile, the cop hooks up with the drug lord's girlfriend, Persephone. And they're in bed, and she's like, hey, you want to have some fun? And she pulls out one of those giant gallon Ziploc bags and says, let's try some drugs. And he's like, what's that? And she says, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think it basically looks like Tylenol. And they're like little like Tylenol pills. She says, oh, it's HT25, which she also calls high trim, which one of them says, oh, yeah, that's German for shark dream. Which is the fucking like craziest but most baddiest thing I've ever heard. First of all, like who the hell knows that high trim is German for shark dream? And what a fucking crazy ass thing to call this.
I think that sounds cool. Did you happen to look it up? Is that German for? Oh, okay. Neither did I. I was just wondering.
I can't imagine. I mean, a high trim is not German for shark dream. I'm almost 100% positive.
I know.
But we can fact check it if we need to.
I would do a drug called Shark Dream.
Not sure. Well,
Shark. What did you say?
Trim? Shark Dream. It's high
Shark
trim.
Dream,
Which is Shark Dream.
Yeah.
And she proceeds to explain that it's a hallucinogen that makes you think you're a shark. Which I will give you. That does sound like I'm not a big drug user, but if somebody's like, do you want a drug that makes you think you're a shark? I'd be like, I guess. I mean, that sounds kind of fucking cool. I kind of am curious what a shark thinks. And then, so they take this drug. It's funny, because spoiler alert, I hated this film, but now that I'm talking about it, I'm almost kind of charming myself. Like, I'm like, this is kind of a fun movie. It's not nearly as fun as I'm making it sound. I need you to know that. But they're in bed and they take this drug and then they start like jerking around in bed like they're having a fit. And then we see this overlay of this weird shark fever dream that the guy is having.
Mm-hmm.
And it does look like something like a student PowerPoint type of thing, Mm-hmm. It's not good. But he's apparently having this like weird dream where he thinks he's a shark. And I will say the effects in this little PowerPoint presentation are so bad that they are comical. Like I did laugh out loud in the scene. I was like, the fuck, Okay, so then for some reason, we meet a girl in this cabin. And she is heavily medicated because she has been having delusions that she thinks that she saw this mutant shark creature. Now, the thing is that she actually did see the shark creature, but nobody believes her, even though she's got a photo of it on her phone. Mm. But everybody thinks she's batshit crazy. And so she's like on all these drugs to, not have these delusions. And then we go back to, so it's cutting back and forth, right? Then we go back to the cop who says this brilliant line. He's like, I never imagined wanting to be a shark. Now I feel like there's nothing else I'd rather be, which is a pretty phenomenal line as well. And then he asks, he's like, but I don't understand, like, how do they make the hallucinations shark specific? And then Persephone says, this is how on point the writing is. She says, I could tell you, but guess what? Everybody can fill in what happens next, but then I'd have to kill you. Ha, ha, ha. And then
I didn't understand where that came from either.
It's stupid. It's absolutely like, it's fucking idiotic. So then he like keeps taking this drug. He's like immediately addicted to it, right? He can't imagine being anything other than a shark now. This is his like dream life. So he keeps taking the drug. And one of the things that I did like love about this, and I again, I'm using love very facetiously, is that whenever they take the drug and he has his shark dream, it is the exact same scene from earlier, just on repeat. They just replay the exact, she's in the exact same clothes. She's in the same nightgown. There's the same twitching, the same exact fever dream. They don't mix it up at all. It is literally just spliced the exact same scene over again. And they're like, look, it's happening again, which is bananas.
Could I cut in here for a second?
Of course, please.
Did you see Shark Exorcist?
I have not.
You did. You have not?
I have not, but that's by the same guy.
Is it really?
Yeah, I'm almost positive it is.
It all makes sense now. Shark Exorcist. Okay, it's not. This show isn't about Shark Exorcist, so I won't. But if you got a kick out of this and you're a shark junkie, I would, without any reservation, recommend you watch Shark Exorcist. Please.
I do have a friend who actually watched this with me.
Okay.
And we were like, oh my God, we should do a podcast where we talk about nothing. We just, because there's like hundreds and hundreds of these kind of films where we just review these films and talk about these like shark crazy animal films, which would be fun, but also might like break my brain a little bit. So I don't know.
That's actually a great idea.
I think so too. I think it'd be super fun.
An animal related horror podcast.
Just all these like shitty ass B movie like craziness. I think it'd be super fun. But we digress. Let's get back into the beauty of Cocaine Shark. Let me see where I am at. Okay, so the drug lord then tells Persephone that they're done with the cop. Like he's played his part. I want you to, he tells her, he's like, I want you to take him out on a boat. And he's like, but he tells her, but first clean him up. So for some reason she has to shave him before she takes him out of the boat. And he looks like a completely different person with that. Cause he has this crazy ass like Grizzly Adams beard. And she shaves him and he doesn't even look like the same guy. Like if you're not paying attention, you would not even know that was him. And I don't understand why he has to get cleaned up because they're basically taking him out to kill him for some reason.
One of the things that people criticize Shark Exorcist for is the director has all these really bizarre fetishes, the kind of things that most wouldn't even call attention to, let alone put in one of their own movies. But he put like all these bizarre little like shark fetish. You have to see it. Like this, there's like a mentally challenged girl who loves sharks, but it's an adult. So you're like, okay, is that an adult who's really goofy, or is that an adult playing a kid? And like Burial Ground, like Peter Bark. But he has these weird fetishes that he put in the movie, and there's such non sequiturs like this kind of. But yeah. I love that you told me that because it makes total sense now.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, so the drug enforcers then show up to the boat. And speaking of non sequiturs, these drug enforcers, they're thugs, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, drug enforcers. They look like they are headed to the country club. So one of them is wearing a fucking beret and a long sleeve white shirt, right? Button down shirt. And the other guy is wearing a sweater over like a t-shirt and a backwards baseball cap. It's the fucking nuttiest thing I've ever seen. And then I wrote down, and I was so emphatic about this point that I bolded and highlighted this point, which makes me laugh. I said, there's like 5 minutes of crab shark in this movie. There is almost no actual crab shark. It is all these like this cop and these like drug dealers and this fucking scientist and this weird subplot that doesn't make any sense. But we are now, all this talk I'm doing, we are fucking 50 minutes into this film.
Yep.
And now the crab shark actually attacks the boat for the first time. It's about the first, I mean, you may have gotten glimpses, but this is about the first time that we've had any crab shark action. And the briefcase falls in the water. And the cop has to dive in after it, even though the boat has just been attacked by this thing that they don't know what it is. And he's going to try to find, and he's in the murkiest lake water you have ever seen. Like, it is like, there is no fucking way he could see jack shit in that water. Somehow he can see where the briefcase is, and he swims down and he gets it. And he barely escapes the crab shark. And he gets back on the boat. And he says, I also wrote down this, he actually says a line, he's like, none of this was making any sense. And then I wrote down amen, because I feel like that's just like channeling the audience at this point. So when I first watched this 50 minutes into it, I'm like, who are these people? What is happening? What the fuck? Like, none of it. I'm making it sound like it makes sense. And this is after watching it twice and carefully like trying to notate what's happening, but it does not make any sense. But the cop and Persephone escape the goons, and they show up at this girl's cabin, the crazy girl that we met earlier.
Mm.
She's acting all, like, they knock on the door, and she's acting all weird and kind of spooked. And so they look in the window, and they see that the drug lord is there. And for some reason, he has also given himself a makeover to go to this girl's cabin. And I don't quite understand. They never explain why. But they see that he's holding her at gunpoint. They break in, and the cop calls the cop guy, who's undercover, mind you, at this point. Nobody's supposed to know he's a cop. He calls the station, and right in front of the drug lord and Persephone, he announces that he's a cop. And everybody's super casual about it. He's like, oh, yeah, Joe, this is Detective so-and-so. Like, I need you to come help me out. And then there's this great scene where the girl, like, they say something about, like, this crab shark. And she's like, wait, that's fucking real? And they're like, yeah. And she shows them the picture on her phone, which is the most hilarious picture you've ever seen. And you think it's like a picture on the phone. They could probably make that look pretty good really easily with Photoshop. They don't even try. It looks horrific. And they're like, no, that's real. Yeah, that's crab shark. And she runs to the door. And this is the best scene of the whole fucking film, where she says, and my friend that was watching the movie said, like, oh my God, this should be a GIF. Like, we should totally make this a meme because it's perfect. But she says, I feel so damn happy. And then she throws all her pills out the door. And it's kind of brilliant. This film has moments of brilliance like that. It just doesn't sustain any of that. It's probably, I'd say, out of the entire film, which is like an hour and 20 minutes or something, probably 2 minutes of brilliance in the film, but it's worth the price of admission.
That's probably an accurate actual numerical reading.
Yeah, I'm very good at these mathematical equations.
About 2 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so then the cop leaves the two women alone with the drug lord and takes the gun, which is like insane because I'm like, okay, you're just leaving these two women alone with this like guy that just had this girl at gunpoint. Goes outside, and then we learn that the crab shark, for some reason, and this is the first, and we're like last 10 minutes of the movie. First notice that we're getting of this, the crab shark spits acid for some reason. And spits acid all over one of the like drug goons, and he like burns his face, and his face at first is just like burned, right? And then like 10 minutes after he gets the acid on him, his face starts melting off, and it's a pretty funny scene. Go ahead.
Like he got acid on his face, but they like forgot it happened.
Yeah.
And then like a few days later, they're like, wait, he was supposed to have his face melting off. Oh.
Yeah, it's like a delayed. Does any acid work like that, where you get on your face and it's like a delayed response before it melts your entire face off? Like he melts into like a little puddle, basically. It's like a comical. It's not even just like that the skin falls off. It's like his whole head melts into goo.
I don't think this was made by horror people, because this seems an awful lot like a John Q. Public. Almost like some of the jocks that I went to college with, who like in the creative writing class, they didn't know, like, I'll be an elitist here. They're not like us. They don't think like us. They don't experience the same things we do. So when they try, like AI maybe, to imitate a horror story or a scary thing, they think on the top surface, like, okay, what are the things that make horror movies cool? And this guy seemed to think the same thing. Like, okay, we need mutants, we need drugs, we need gore, we need crazy, we need, and yet for some reason, these are all things that would have made a very interesting movie, because you're describing a very interesting movie. The only thing making it uninteresting and horrible is when you stop and we say how horrible and uninteresting it is. But I mean, I don't think the people who made this cared, is my point. And I can't get my head around that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, for sure, a cash. It's like, are you familiar with Asylum?
Oh, very familiar.
So yeah, it's like that idea of like, okay, this is popular right now. We need to take advantage of it. And here's the thing. Plenty of people like me, I'm not going to like exclude myself from this equation, would see this film just because it's called Cocaine Shark. And because the trailer looks a little bit insane. And this is one of the things I wanted to point out that I talked about earlier a little bit, is that the fucking poster for this looks badass. Like when you see the poster, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I'm in. I'm 100%. The poster looks like what we talked about earlier, which was Jaws on cocaine. It looks like it would be that kind of film, and it looks like a film you want to watch. But literally nothing in this film is anything remotely close to that. Like in the poster, it's a great white. who's on cocaine, who is jumping out of the water and trying to, like, you know, attack people, which is what you would expect, what you fucking want.
Yeah.
In the movie, like you said, there's no cocaine. I wouldn't even really call this a shark. It's sort of like, it's a cross. It's not a great white. It's a hammerhead.
I was going to say.
Go ahead.
It's claymation. And it kind of resembles, if I'm being perfectly honest here, a turd. It kind of resembles a turd with the hammerhead shark head, basically.
Well,
and the eyes look kind of weird.
Yeah, it's like a hammerhead and a crab, but it also sort of looks like a brine shrimp. It's green. And it sort of looks like a giant brine shrimp. It looks fucking insane. And it's not even like I said, like, why the hell it's not the great white in the film is the half shark, half human.
Yeah.
That's sort of great whitish, you know? But yeah, it's a weird fucking choice, just visually and from a storytelling perspective. And it's like, I really feel like they had this film sort of like already in development and it was supposed to be something else. And then when Cocaine Bear came out, they just slapped the name Cocaine Shark on here to, you know, piggyback off of the success of that film and the popularity.
Yeah.
This film was not a film that was written, like, you didn't start with the premise of like, okay, Cocaine Shark, go write the film. I feel like you had a film that existed and you just sort of slapped Cocaine Shark on it and was like, that's good enough. And
yeah, it seems that way.
That's super annoying because it's like, this film honestly should have written itself. Like, again, I think AI would have done a better job. There's no reason for the film that we got. Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense. There's elements of this that could have been fun. And again, I feel a little bad because when I'm doing this little plot breakdown, as I'm hearing myself talk, I'm like, well, this sounds fun. It's not fun.
It's not. It's terrible. People really. Now you're going to hear this conversation and it's probably going to make you want to see it, which is fine. But I don't know. Don't see it. Really. Sincerely. I will never give movies like this a dime of my money because it's like these people are playing an intentional practical joke on their audience. And the audience is saying, yes, we know it's a practical joke. Here's $10 and let's see the stupid thing you do to pretend I'm a moron. But it's like they're saying, fuck you.
When these films are done right, they are wildly fun. Now, they're not for everyone. And it's something you have to preface. Like, I'm not going to go and tell the average moviegoer, like, well, I'm not going to tell anyone to go see Cocaine Shark. But let's say that Cocaine Shark was good. I'm not going to tell the average moviegoer to see this. I'm going to tell people who love these kind of films. And you can self-identify. That's the great thing about these films. Like, if you see this shit on like Syfy or Tubi or whatever, and you see like I'm trying to think of one of the like Sharktopus versus like mega, crack chimpanzee or some shit. Like the more ridiculous the fucking film title is and premise is.
Well, you're going to see a fucking crack zoo of crack animal movies. There's going to be somebody's going to make a crack zoo, and it's just going to be about a whole zoo of crack animals. I'm torn because I support art. I love art. I want everybody, if they have an idea, to go and make their art. But you make a movie for the sake of art or expression, or you want to make money, or most of the time you want to sort of do all three. None of those three things this movie was able to do. And they knew that before they made it. So why did they make it?
I know Casey and I have had this argument too. He does not like it when people make it intentional so bad it's good film. He thinks that's lazy. He thinks it's cheap. It's not enjoyable. Like, it's not his thing. And that's totally okay. And that's what I say, like, you have to self-select. But there is absolutely an audience for these kind of films. And I don't think there's anything wrong with liking these kind of films. I like these kind of films. I also very much like high art. I very much like, art house, A24, sophisticated, thought-provoking. But there's a part of me that loves this kind of shit too. But there is a way to make shit that's fun, that's respectful of your audience. And this is, I'm not mad that it's shit. I'm mad that it's not good shit, if that makes any sense. And
It is wonderful. I'm glad we have it because it inspires conversations like this. Fortunately,
oh God, yeah, we definitely need that.
Well, seriously, fortunately, this one is getting caught on tape, but there's like millions of other conversations similar to this going on. People are thinking, people are, analyzing the art. Yeah, it's art. Sure, it is. Any creative venture is art. I mean, no matter how good it is. So, yeah, I totally support this. I mean, I just don't like it. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the famous proverb. I don't get it.
Well, this has been an experience.
This has been fun, and you can't deny it.
I mean, I can, but I won't if you don't want me to.
Well, I hope.
No, it's been fun. It's been fun, and I do appreciate. Listen, you didn't piss me off nearly as much as Casey usually does, and that's a compliment. I mean, you would have to work really hard to rise to his level. So really, kind of, even if I get irritated or annoyed, that's nothing compared to what I'm used to. I'm used to getting very much attacked.
So that's real when you guys fight like that? That's
I mean,
to a certain extent, yeah.
Well, this is what Casey always says. I'm not really playing a character. This is me. Me.
I know. Yeah, this is.
I legitimately love movies, and I love to talk about them. And it's rare for me to find something where I'm just a complete hater.
Mm-hmm.
Although Cocaine Shark, I think maybe a little bit of a hater, but I'm pretty sincere. Casey plays a character he does tend to dislike a lot more stuff than me, and he is a little bit crotchety and a little bit more just it's a little harder to please him, but he does take that crotchetiness and ramp it up to a 35 on a scale of 1 to 10 just for the sake of radio. So I don't know if I would say real is a weird thing. So I think it's real. Our opinions are real, but the antagonistic nature of it is not. I mean, we like each other. We have fun. We're friends. We're not ever saying anything to be mean or hateful. And he does like to rile me up. He thinks it's really funny when I get really upset. He that's kind of joyful to him.
Well, I think it's fun too.
Yeah, see? No, you don't, because when I get upset, you get upset. See, he doesn't get upset when I get upset. That's the difference. When I'm upset, he's yes, I've done it. I've done my work. My work here is done. I have succeeded.
Maybe I'm more sensitive than he is.
Yeah, you are.
Maybe
that was a compliment.
Yeah,
Jamie,
okay.
I was complimenting you. I wasn't insulting you when saying you weren't as bad as him. I was trying to I was trying to say that's a good thing.
Fuck your compliments.
So you don't have to get defensive about it.
I love it. It's funny. Okay.
No, this was a good time, and I really appreciate you coming on. I know that Casey had to take a little break, but we didn't want the show to just go radio silent. So, and I appreciate you talking about shit that I know that you don't really enjoy, but I felt I've been wanting to say Cocaine Bear for a while. And when Cocaine Shark came across my desk, I was like, oh my God, this movie was made for me. This is perfection. We've got to watch it. I was wrong.
Have you ever spoken to someone who likes it?
It hasn't been released yet. We watched a screener. So,
I mean, other critics and press people, though.
No, I don't know anybody.
You don't know anybody?
Mm-mm.
You went to the Fantastic Fest. How can you not know anybody?
I don't talk to people.
Okay.
I'm not there to socialize. I'm there to sit in a movie theater for 13, 15 hours a day and watch movies, which is my favorite thing in the world to do.
You don't get drinks or anything? Have some Horse d'Orvies or anything like that?
I do have Horse d'Orvies for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite part of the Film Fest is Horse d'Orvies.
That's another dad joke. That's hors d'oeuvres, right? You got that joke.
I got it, Jamie. It wasn't that elevated. I was able to understand it. Thank you.
Okay.
Very sophisticated joke telling, but I am able to slightly keep up. So, but no, in all seriousness, thank you for coming on. And this was fun, and I had a really good time. And I appreciate being able to watch these insane films and talk about them. It's a good time.
I loved it.
Yay.
I really did. So do not watch Cocaine Shark.
I mean, watch it if you want. Let's not tell people
yeah.
what to do.
No, yeah. Watch Shark Exorcist.
I mean, I almost think that you should watch Cocaine Shark because other people should experience what we had to experience. Like, we should not be alone in the world. Yeah.
Everybody needs to see the turd hammerhead.
And it is coming up on Shark Week, which is the most sacred and holy of all weeks of the year. So I actually think that this releases during Shark Week. Maybe, if I'm not mistaken. So we're gonna go.
Yes.
Finally, I think this has been like a 4-hour podcast. Anything? Do you wanna like tell people where to find you? You're not really on social media very much, but anything you want to say?
Are you kidding? Sure. I'm on Facebook, Jamie Marino at facebook.com or whatever. Instagram.
Tell people how to get to Facebook. In case you don't know, that's facebook.com for the uninitiated.
See, you make fun of me, and then you make me.
Of course I do. Oh my God.
Stupid, and I'm not stupid.
No, I do not make you. That is all you. I don't want you to give me any credit for that. That is, you get to keep all the credit for that yourself.
And on Instagram, I'm RedCrow88.
Instagram.com for everybody who needs to know.
No, don't confuse anybody. I'm RedCrow88. And I do post a lot on there. Lots of fun stuff and lots of stuff about wrestling and stuff, but not all about wrestling. So people who hate wrestling don't go like, "Oh Christ, these fucking wrestling guys."
It's a lot of wrestling, just so you know. Just need to make people to be aware. Spoiler alert.
It's a few specific ones, not all.
Yeah, that makes it better.
I think Shark Exorcist. Sorry.
Jesus fucking Christ!
This is your fault because now I'm.
No, it's not my fault. Absolutely not.
I'm paranoid about saying it, so every time I want to say Cocaine Shark, gonna forget. Anyway, what was I gonna say?
I don't know. I have no fucking idea.
All right. Anyway,